Hello everyone, it's me, Vivi, and welcome. So first and foremost, what's up with the title? Funny wording, ain't it? What I mean by Ratchet Clank going Miles Morales is another game before the next bigger installment. In this case, we got Rift Apart. The game was released almost 2 years ago, June 11th, 2021. At this point in time, I feel it's interesting to discuss this sort of thing. With Marvel's Spider-Man, we had the first one, then Miles Morales, and now the upcoming sequel, Marvel Spider-Man 2. So in Ratchet's case, could we ever get another game before the next big one, if that ever happens? In other words, could we imagine a Rivet and Kit spin-off? Something to bridge these two titles. A game between both main sequels. Before we get our hopes too high, it is important to mention that no. Currently, another Ratchet & Clank hasn't been confirmed. We have to realize Insomniac Games is currently busy with Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Not to mention its release date scheduled for this fall, 2023. If Sony is planning another major event, then surely IG is preparing themselves to showcase the game, whenever that may be. Let's also not forget that they have Wolverine in the pipeline. Yeah, IG is a big studio, but their entire focus right now is most likely on these upcoming Marvel projects. With that said, let's add a bit more context. Miles Morales is what most refer to as a spin-off game, or how IG put it back in 2020, this is the next adventure in the Marvel Spider-Man universe. The story strays away from the main character in order to focus on another, in this case, Miles. The main game did show Miles gaining his powers, so with Miles Morales, the game, the story simply fleshes out our new main character, and we get to explore his story as another Spider-Man. The game is shorter than the first one and is considered standalone. Now looking at Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Miles joins the party and it seems like he will play a large role in this upcoming sequel. With that notion in mind, you probably know where I'm going with this. Take the game, Miles Morales, and replace the star of the show with Rivet and Kit instead. This game, albeit shorter adventure, will act as a spin-off, solely focusing more on Rivet and Kit. Rift Apart simply explored the surface of these characters. A shorter spin-off / mini sequel could not only bridge the main games together, but also flesh out these two characters, especially considering the fact that Rivet has risen in popularity. Alright, the pit stop thing and Rift Apart, I'm gonna bring it up again. I personally believe that meant just getting to know one another more. Going to Xerxes, getting Clank's arm fixed, and just looking at the credits. Ratchet and Rivet seem to be spending time together, getting to know one another after the ordeal they went through defeating the Emperor. Think of it this way, Ratchet and Rivet met through all this chaos, trying to save the galaxy and all. The pit stop could just be that. Getting to finally, properly, get to know each other with no interference. Simply, a Rivet and Kit spin-off could take place after Ratchet and Clank head back home. Let's not forget, Rivet and Kit are now considered friends, and they did put aside their differences in the end. Alrighty, imagining a Rivet and Kit game, we start wondering what the story or gameplay premise would be like. Real quick, playing as Giant Kit would be one heck of an idea. We've had that sort of thing with Ratchet and Clank in the old days. Having Giant Kit playable would not only be a nice change of pace, but it would also introduce more gameplay variety. Speaking of which, if you didn't know, during the development phase of Rift Apart, IG played around with the idea of having Ratchet and Rivet have these different playstyles. However, they thought players wouldn't really enjoy it, fearing they'd prefer one character playstyle over the other. Now the question is, with the spin-off game having Rivet and Kit as the main characters, would it be a good idea to introduce new playstyles? We wouldn't be moving back and forth between Ratchet and Rivet here. Sure, such spin-off could explore hidden yet unexplored abilities of Rivet, But what if this causes players to want these same exact abilities in the next main sequel for Ratchet & Clank? That's the challenging part here. What makes a spin-off Rivet game a Rivet game? And what makes a Ratchet game a Ratchet & Clank game? If you understand what I'm trying to say here. They would need to figure out a nice gameplay balance. Make each game stand out on its own. Heck, Rivet having new abilities would be so interesting, for sure. But what if we end up loving it so much we want Ratchet to have those abilities? What do you think of this idea? In terms of story, one could be about exploring Kit's past. What was it like when she first became Gary's apprentice? We could have flashbacks to that. One in-game dialogue I remember, for example, is when Ratchet asks Kit how she even became Gary's apprentice. She replied by saying, "It's a long story, and she was lucky Gary saw potential in her." There's also another one where Kit tells Ratchet that Gary is more of a brother than a best friend. These things could be explored via flashbacks, during in-game dialogue, for example. Something along those lines. Other flashbacks could also work for Rivet. According to the first Spybot, the Resistance was born in Nefarious City. We could have a couple of flashbacks or background dialogue exploring more of that. Other flashbacks could do with Rivet encountering the Emperor. He did run Rivet's dimension for years according to his character entry. As for a villain Rivet and Kit would deal with, it could be the Emperor's assistant. Looking at the credits, she looked like she enjoyed taking over the Emperor's office, until she ran away after encountering the Resistance. She could be missing the Emperor. She could try anything in her arsenal. Try is the keyword here. Try and bring him back, only to fail in the end by the hands of Rivet and Kit. All in all, a spin-off of these two would explore more of their friendship dynamic. In other words, more of that close hero of the galaxy companionship. What are your thoughts on all this? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. And like always, a massive thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel, I appreciate it. And to those who tuned in as well, thank you. I've been Vivi, and until next time.